He thought she would stand there on his big day, looking small, desperate, and broken. He thought his pregnant ex-girlfriend would hold the microphone with shaking hands and sing for money, while he stood at the altar in a designer suit, kissing his new bride and showing everyone how far he had risen and how far she had fallen. But when she opened her mouth to sing, what came out was not a love song. It was the truth. And that truth tore his perfect wedding apart in front of 300 witnesses. And later, in front of millions of people on the internet. Hello friends. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from: New York, London, Toronto, or Johannesburg. We'd love to know. Now, sit back, listen closely, and stay with this story until the very end. Because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about dignity, courage, and a woman who discovered that even when someone walks away, love can still stay. In one of the busiest cities in the country, surrounded by glass towers, rooftop pools, and luxury cars, there lived a man named Damien Hart. Damien was the kind of man people pointed at on magazine covers. He was in his early 30s, CEO of a fast-growing tech company called Heartline Systems, which sold software to banks and big corporations. He wore suits that cost more than most people's rent. His watch alone could have paid for a small apartment for a year. When he walked through the lobby of his office tower, people moved out of his way without even realizing they were doing it. His shoes were always polished. His hair was always perfect. His smile was sharp, practiced, and calculated. To strangers, Damien was the dream. Young, rich, successful, handsome. But if you looked closer, you would see something else. His smile never quite reached his eyes. His compliments were always useful. His kindness always had a price. Everything about Damien was about image. He lived on the top floor of a luxury building with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the whole city like a glittering toy below him. The walls of his penthouse were decorated with modern art that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Abstract shapes he didn't really understand, but bought because his interior designer told him they were important pieces. He had a walk-in closet full of custom-made suits, silk ties arranged by color, and dress shoes lined up in perfect rows. In his kitchen, there were fancy appliances and imported coffee machines. Even though he rarely cooked for himself, at business events, people admired him. At charity galas, they took photos with him. On social media, they praised his inspiring journey from nothing to millionaire. But beneath all that shine and noise, there was something missing in Damien's heart. Something he had once held in his hands and then thrown away like trash. Her name was Lena Morris. Where Damien was ice, Lena was warmth. Where Damien cared about status and headlines, Lena cared about kindness and truth. Lena was 28 years old, with deep brown eyes that always seemed to be listening, and a soft smile that made people feel safe. She didn't own any designer clothes. Most of her dresses came from discount racks or second-hand shops. But when she walked into a room, people turned to look, not because of what she wore, but because of who she was. Lena was a singer. She didn't sing on giant stages or in big arenas. She sang at small restaurants with fairy lights strung across the ceiling, at birthday parties, at little bars where couples went to celebrate anniversaries. Sometimes she sang at funerals, sometimes at weddings, sometimes just for people who needed music more than they needed sleep. Her voice wasn't perfect in a technical way, but when she sang, it felt like someone had opened a window in your chest and let the wind in. You could hear her joy. You could hear her pain. You could hear all the things she had survived and all the things she still hoped for. She lived in a small, worn apartment in an older part of the city, where the walls were thin, the floors creaked, and everyone knew their neighbors' first names. Her furniture was simple and second-hand, but everything was clean. The only decorations on her walls were a few family photos and a framed piece of paper with a handwritten quote from her grandmother. "When people walk away, let them. But never walk away from yourself." On a cool evening in October, Lena sat on her faded couch with one hand resting on her rounded belly. She was 6 months pregnant. Her baby kicked softly, like a tiny reminder that life was growing inside her, no matter how hard things were on the outside. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, rubbing her belly gently. "I promise you, baby. Mama's going to take care of you." But even as she said it, fear coiled in her chest. Money was running out fast. Her small singing jobs barely covered rent. She was already 2 weeks late on her electricity bill. When she opened the refrigerator, all she saw were a few eggs, a half-empty carton of milk, and a piece of cheese wrapped in plastic. There was no baby crib in the corner, no stack of diapers, no tiny clothes folded neatly in drawers. Just bills. Just worry. Just a quiet apartment and a heart that still hurt every time she remembered the man who should have been there and wasn't. Damien Hart. He had loved her once, or at least, he said he did. He had come into that little bar where she sang 2 years ago, wearing a suit that looked like it belonged in a movie, and sat at the front table with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He watched her sing, came up to her after the show, Cora, and told her she had the kind of voice that could break a man and put him back together in the same song. They had started dating. He had taken her to restaurants where the menus had no prices. He had given her gifts that made her uncomfortable: watches, bracelets, expensive shoes. At first, he seemed fascinated by her simple life. He told her he loved that she didn't care about money, that she was different from everyone in his world. But little by little, the cracks appeared. He began to correct the way she dressed for his events. "You're going to dinner with investors, Lena, not singing at a cafe. Wear this instead?" He made jokes that weren't really jokes. "It's cute that you get excited about a $200 tip. Some of us spend that on coffee, you know?" One evening, when she accidentally spilled sauce on his designer suit jacket, he snapped at her in front of his friends. "Do you know how much this costs? You have to be more careful, Lena. This isn't your little neighborhood bar." And then, the pregnancy test turned positive. She remembered the way her hands shook as she told him. She remembered the way he stared at the small white stick and then at her. "You're pregnant?" he repeated. "With my child?" "Yes," she whispered, eyes shining with both fear and hope. "I know it's a big surprise, but..." He didn't even let her finish. Instead, his face twisted in anger and panic. "This is not the time," he said coldly. "I have deals coming. I have a reputation. I'm on the verge of expanding Heartline into 3 new countries. I can't have this right now. This." The word cut through her. "This, Damien? You mean our baby?" He'd thrown some money on her kitchen table. "Take care of it," he'd said. "You know what I mean? I'll cover the cost. After that, we go our separate ways." The sound of his footsteps walking out of her apartment that night was a sound Lena would never forget. She hadn't taken care of it. She had taken care of her child instead. She kept the baby. She kept the pain. And Damien kept his distance. A loud knock on the door pulled Lena out of her memories. "It's me," called a cheerful voice from the hallway. Only one person sounded that bright in Lena's life. Camila Reyes, her best friend since high school. Lena opened the door, and Camila burst in carrying 2 heavy bags of groceries and her usual hurricane of energy. Cangela was not rich either. She worked at a bookstore downtown, and lived in a tiny studio where books were stacked higher than her head. But no matter how tired she was, she always found a way to help Lena. "You didn't have to bring food again," Lena said, though gratitude softened her voice. "Please," Camilla replied, rolling her eyes playfully as she set the bags on the small kitchen counter. "You're eating for two now. And one of them is my future godchild. That means I have responsibilities." She started unpacking. Rice, vegetables, chicken, fruit, a bag of oranges, a jar of peanut butter. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered. Camilla walked over and hugged her gently, careful of Lena's baby bump. "You're never going to have to find out," Camilla said softly. "We're in this together, remember?" For a few moments, the apartment didn't feel so heavy. They cooked, ate, laughed about silly things, and pretended just for a little while that Bill's heartbreak and absent fathers didn't exist. 2 days later, everything changed. Lena was standing at the sink, washing dishes, when her old phone, the one with the cracked screen, started ringing on the tiny counter. She wiped her wet hands on a towel and answered, "Hello? Hello? Is this Ms. Lena Morris?" The voice on the other end was female, professional, and crisp. "Yes, this is Lena," she replied carefully. "Wonderful. My name is Sandra Liu. I'm an event planner for high-end weddings and corporate galas. I've heard very good things about your voice. I have a job opportunity for you." Lena's heart sped up. High-end weddings meant good pay. "I'm listening," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Sandra continued. "I'm organizing a luxury wedding next month at the Imperial Crown Hotel. We're expecting around 300 guests. There will be a live orchestra, a celebrity chef, media coverage. The couple wants a solo vocalist to perform during the ceremony, and later during the cocktail reception. The pay is $3,000 for the evening." Lena almost dropped the phone. 3,000. She hadn't seen that much money in 6 months. They discussed a few more formalities. When the call ended, Lena sat down on the couch, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the miracle we've been praying for, little one." 30 minutes later, her laptop, old, slow, but still alive, chimed with a new email. She opened it eagerly. Subject: Wedding Performance Contract, Imperial Crown Hotel. She began reading, smiling as her eyes ran over the elegant script, until she got to the names. The marriage celebration of Mr. Adrian Cole and Miss Victoria Holley. Lena's smile vanished. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She read the names again. And again. Adrian Cole. Not Damien Hart. For a moment, her brain refused to accept what she was seeing. Then, a cold wave washed over her. Adrian Cole was his legal first and last name. Damien was just what his friends called him. The charming nickname he used at events, while Adri appeared on contracts, legal documents, and, apparently, wedding invitations. Her fingers trembled over the keyboard. He was getting married. And somehow, someone had hired his pregnant ex-girlfriend to sing at his luxury wedding. Lena snapped the laptop shut, as if the screen had burned her. "No," she whispered, pacing across the small living room. "No, no, no, this can't be happening." She opened the laptop again, hoping she had misread something. But there it was, in black and white. Adrian Cole and Victoria Holley, November 15th, Imperial Crown Hotel. Her stomach twisted. She ran to the bathroom sink, splashed water on her face, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red and tired. Her face looked swollen from months of stress and crying. Her hair, once styled with care before her bar gigs, was pulled back in a simple ponytail. "He's getting married," she said to her reflection. "And he expects me to sing at his wedding?" Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hello, Ms. Morris. This is Sandra Luyu. Just confirming you received the contract details. The groom specifically requested a female vocalist with real emotional depth. Your demo recording was exactly what he wanted. Please confirm your acceptance by tomorrow morning. Looking forward to working with you. Lena's blood ran cold. Real emotional depth. Those were Damien's old words. He used to say, "Lena, your voice has something raw in it. Something honest. That's what makes people feel." He knew. He had requested her. This wasn't a coincidence. This was deliberate. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the city noise outside and feeling the baby moving inside her. Her mind was a battlefield of questions and rage. Why would he do this? Was this his way of punishing her for keeping the baby? Did he want her to stand on that stage, belly visible, while he smiled beside another woman in a white dress? Was he trying to send a message? Look how far I've come. Look how far she's fallen. By sunrise, Lena had made a decision. She would say no. She would write to Sandra politely, thank her for the opportunity, and decline. She couldn't stand in that ballroom and let herself be turned into a prop in Damien's twisted show. Her dignity was worth more than $3,000, or so she told herself. But that was before she looked around her apartment. The unpaid bills on the table. The eviction notice warning that one more late rent payment could put her out on the street. The empty spot in the corner, where a crib should have been. The almost empty refrigerator. Her hand went instinctively to her belly. Her baby twisted gently, as if asking for an answer. $3,000 wasn't just money. It was rent. It was food. It was diapers, and a crib, and a stroller. It was electricity for the heater in the winter. It was the difference between we'll find a way and we have nowhere to go. What kind of choice is this? Lena whispered as tears fell down her cheeks. When Camila arrived that afternoon, Lena's eyes were swollen from crying. What happened? Kanjia asked immediately, dropping her bag. Lena told her everything. The job, the money, the groom's name. The cruel realization that it was Damien's wedding, and that he knew exactly who he had hired. When she finished, she expected Camila to say, "Of course you can't go. You should refuse." But her friend surprised her. "You should do it," Camila said quietly. Lena stared at her in disbelief. "Cam, how can you say that? He abandoned me. He called this baby a mistake. He threw money on my table like I was a problem to be solved. And now he wants me to perform at his wedding." Listen. Camila took her hand, her eyes fierce and bright. What he did was cruel. No excuse, no justification. But if you refuse this job, who really wins? Me? Lena said stubbornly. I keep my pride. And lose $3,000 when you're 6 months pregnant and terrified of being homeless. Camilla replied, Lena, he doesn't deserve the power to control your decisions. You need that money. Your baby needs that money. So you think I should just walk in there and let him humiliate me? Only if you let him, Camilla said, voice steady. What if you flip the script? What if you walk into that ballroom not as his victim, but as Lena Morris, professional vocalist who is there to do her job and leave with her head high and her baby's future safer? Lena wiped her eyes. I don't understand. I'm saying, Camilla continued, go to that wedding, take that money. But don't go there as the ex he abandoned. Go as a woman who survived him. Sing your songs, do your job. And every note you sing is not for him, it's for your child, for your own future. Lena was quiet for a long moment. You really think I can do this? She whispered. Camilla squeezed her hand. I don't just think it. I know it. You've survived heartbreak, poverty, and carrying a baby alone. Singing at a wedding. That's nothing compared to what you've already overcome. That night, Lena sat in front of her old keyboard, a slightly out-of-tune instrument her grandmother had given her years ago. At first, she just planned to go through the romantic standards she assumed they'd want. At last, Can't Help Falling in Love. Those safe songs that made older couples smile and younger couples dream. But as her fingers moved over the keys, something else came instead. Words. Melodies. Lines she hadn't planned, pouring into her mind like a river. You walked away, left me in the storm. Said I was too small for your perfect world. But the love you threw away that day didn't die. It chose to stay. Lena blinked, surprised. She wrote the words down. Her hands moved again. You wanted gold, you wanted crowds, you needed praise, you needed loud. But in the quiet, when you sleep, do you hear the heart you couldn't keep? Tears blurred her vision, but she kept going. Verse after verse. A chorus that felt like it had been hiding in her chest for months. You walked away, but love remained. In tiny kicks and whispered names. You broke my heart, but I'm not ashamed. Because you left? And love remained. When she finished, she realized she was sobbing, not weakly, but with a strange feeling of relief. She had written a song. Not for a stage, not for a crowd, for herself. What are you going to do with that? Camilla asked a few days later, listening with goosebumps on her arms as Lena sang through the new song. I don't know, Lena admitted. It's too personal for a wedding. Sandra already sent me a list of traditional songs the couple wants. This feels like something I'm supposed to sing just for me. Camilla smiled softly. Sometimes the songs we write for ourselves are the ones the world needs most. Lena laughed weakly. Well, the world is not invited to that wedding, Cam. Just rich people and magazine photographers? Don't be so sure, Camilla murmured. Across the city, in his glass box of a penthouse, Adrian Damien Cole stood with a glass of imported whiskey in his hand, staring down at the lights of the city. Everything was in motion. The wedding to Victoria Holly, daughter of an old money family, would be the event of the year. Two influential families joining hundreds of powerful guests. Business partners, investors, celebrities, politicians. The ceremony would be featured in lifestyle magazines. The photos would circulate online. It would be proof to the world that Adrian had arrived. And the singer, well, that was the best part. In his mind, his old friend Marcus White, who had known him since their college days, stepped up beside him. She's really coming? Marcus asked quietly. Yes, Adrian said, taking a slow sip. Lena confirmed yesterday. Marcus shook his head. I still don't understand why you chose her. Man, that's harsh. Even for you, Adrian shrugged. She needs the money. I'm being generous. $3,000 is more than she makes in months, singing in cheap restaurants. I'm giving her a chance. A chance to what? Marcus replied. To stand in front of 300 people, heavily pregnant with your child, while you marry someone else. Adrian's jaw tightened. That's not my child, he said coldly. I offered her a way to handle it. She chose not to. Her choices, her consequences. Marcus looked at him with something like disappointment in his eyes. You used to be different, you know that? He said quietly. You used to actually care about people. I grew up, Adrian replied. I learned that in this world, you either win or you get left behind. Lena. She comes from nothing. No connections. No status. Victoria understands my world. She's an asset, not a liability. And love? Marcus asked softly. What about that? Adrian gave a short, humorless laugh. Love is a story people tell themselves to feel better. Power, success, reputation, that's what matters. Everything else is weakness. Marcus said nothing more. But a small seed of worry took root in his chest. He wondered, not for the first time, what kind of man his old friend had become. The first time Lena saw Victoria Harley was at the rehearsal. She arrived at the Imperial Crown Hotel with her sheet music in a worn folder, wearing a simple black dress and flat shoes. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her belly visible under the fabric. The hotel lobby alone was enough to make her feel out of place. Marble floors, gold chandeliers, staff in perfectly pressed uniforms. The kind of place where everything smelled expensive. Ms. Morris? A voice called. Lena turned to see a slim woman in a tailored suit approaching. I'm Sandra, the event planner said with a warm smile. We've spoken on the phone. Thank you so much for coming. Let me take you to the ballroom. They walked down a hallway filled with fresh flowers and huge framed paintings. Finally, Sandra pushed open two tall doors. The crystal ballroom was breathtaking. High ceilings dripped with crystal chandeliers. Tall windows let in soft afternoon light. Rows of white chairs faced a raised platform where the ceremony would take place. A grand piano waited near the front. And near the stage, talking to the wedding coordinator, stood Adrian. He turned as the doors opened. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, something raw flickered across his face. Shock, guilt, maybe even shame. Then it disappeared. His features smoothed into a polite, cold mask. Ah, he said, voice carrying easily in the empty room. The entertainment has arrived. The entertainment, not Lena, not the singer. The word hit her like a slap. But she remembered what she had practiced with Camilla. She lifted her chin, took a breath, and walked forward. Hello, she said calmly. I'm Lena Maurice, the vocalist for your ceremony. Adrian's eyes flicked down to her stomach, then away. Yes, he said briskly. I've heard your voice will do nicely. He turned to Sandra. Let's begin the sound check, shall we? He didn't acknowledge their past. He didn't mention the nights he'd spent in her tiny apartment. The lullabies she'd sung just for him, the day he'd thrown money on her table and walked out. To him, today, she was simply part of the decor. Lena felt something shift inside her. She had been afraid she would break down when she saw him. That she would cry, or shake, or fall apart. Instead, she felt a different kind of emotion. Not fiery, wild anger, but something colder, clearer. Determination. If he wanted to pretend she meant nothing, she could pretend, too. She sang through the set list with the pianist, her voice echoing through the ballroom as sound technicians adjusted the microphones. Sandra smiled approvingly. Halfway through a classic love song, Lena saw movement at the door. A tall, elegant woman in a cream-colored designer dress entered. Her blonde hair swept up in a perfect chignon, a diamond bracelet glinting on her wrist. Victoria Harley, the bride. She was everything people expected a high society bride to be. Slender, graceful, beautiful, glowing in all the ways money can decorate a person. She walked up to the stage, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. And who is this? She asked, her tone polite but cool, eyes sliding over Lena's simple dress and swollen belly. This is the singer, Adrian said quickly. Ms. Morris? She'll be performing during the ceremony. Victoria's gaze moved from Lena's face to her stomach and back again. For a brief second, something like discomfort flickered across her features. I see, she said. Well, I hope you know appropriate wedding songs. Nothing too dramatic. We want elegant, traditional music. Of course, Lena replied evenly, holding up her folder. I've prepared all the songs on the list Ms. Liu sent me. Sandra jumped in quickly, sensing the tension. Lena comes highly recommended, she said. Her voice is truly beautiful. You're going to love her. They went back to the rehearsal. When it was over and Adrian was speaking with the coordinator, Victoria walked closer to Lena, a strange look in her eyes. Your voice really is stunning, Victoria said quietly. Where did you train? Lena smiled awkwardly. I didn't go to a conservatory or anything, she said. I learned from my grandmother. And from singing in church. I wasn't trying to insult you, Victoria said softly. I meant it. There's something real in your voice. Not polished in a fake way. Just honest. Lena didn't know what to say. Then Victoria glanced again at her belly. When are you due? She asked. February, Lena replied. My first? Victoria's lips parted for a moment, as if she wanted to say something else. Instead, she just nodded. An uncomfortable silence grew between them. Finally, Victoria spoke again, in a low, almost hesitant voice. Can I ask you a strange question? She said. Lena's pulse quickened. Okay, she replied cautiously. Do you think Adrian is a good man? Victoria asked. The question hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament. Lena stared at her, stunned. In that moment, she saw things she hadn't noticed before. The faint lines of worry around Victoria's eyes, the way her shoulders were slightly tense, the way her smile never quite reached her gaze. This woman, wrapped in money and status, was already unsure. Why are you asking me that? Lena said carefully. Victoria glanced toward the front of the ballroom, where Adrian was laughing with the wedding coordinator, charming as ever. Everyone around me tells me how lucky I am, Victoria said quietly. Lucky to marry him, lucky to join his world. My parents adore him. My friends envy me. The wedding planners treat him like a king. But you? She looked back at Lena. When you looked at him just now, there was recognition in your eyes, she went on. Like you've seen something in him, they haven't. Lena's throat tightened. She wanted to tell her everything. To say, he is the father of this baby. He left when he decided I was not good enough for his world. He cares more about his image than about people. But if she did, she might lose this job. She might lose the money her baby needed. And the truth was, Victoria had to make her own choices. So Lena chose a sentence that was technically true, but incomplete. I think only you can answer that, she said gently. I'm just the singer. I don't know him well enough now to judge. Victoria studied her for a long second, then nodded. You're right, she said softly. I shouldn't put my questions on a stranger. I'm sorry, pre-wedding nerves, I guess. Wedding nerves are normal, Lena replied. It's okay. Victoria gave her a small, sad smile. Thank you, she said. For being kind. Most people just tell me how perfect everything is. It's nice to talk to someone who listens instead. She walked away, her heels tapping on the marble, and for the first time, Lena felt something unexpected toward the bride of the man who had broken her heart. Pity. Because with all her diamonds, all her money, and her perfect dress, Victoria Holley might be walking straight into a life built on lies. The days flew by. As November 15th crept closer, Lena changed. At first it was small things. She made sure to eat better, took longer walks, practiced her breathing. She warmed up her voice every morning, humming scales while washing dishes. Then, something deeper shifted. She stopped replaying Damien's last cruel words in her mind. She stopped imagining what it would be like if he suddenly came back, apologizing, begging for a second chance. Instead, she thought about her baby. She looked at the calendar and counted days, not until the wedding, but until her due date. She put her hand on her belly and smiled when the baby kicked. "This is ours," she whispered. "His absence doesn't change that." "You're different," Candula said one afternoon as they sat drinking tea in the tiny kitchen. "Different how?" Lena asked, one hand resting on her now very round belly. "Stronger," Camilla replied simply. "Like you've stopped waiting for him to fix the story." Lena thought about that. "I think I have," she said slowly. "For months I was so angry, so hurt. I kept focusing on what he took from me. But recently, I started looking at what I still have." She looked down at her belly and smiled. "I get to be this child's mother," she said. "I get every kick, every roll, every tiny hiccup. I get to hold this baby first. That's not a punishment. That's a gift." Camilla's eyes filled with tears. "That's the most beautiful thing you've ever said," she whispered. They laughed, they cried, they toasted with tea. At night, Lena sat at her keyboard and played through You Walked Away, but Love Remained from beginning to end. The song was finished now. Polished, powerful, true. She had no plans to sing it at the wedding. She was going to do her job, sing the songs on the list, collect her money, and leave. But she still printed the sheet music and tucked it into her folder. Just in case. A week before the wedding, a package arrived at Lena's door. Inside was a midnight blue dress. Long sleeves, soft fabric, a flowing skirt that would fall beautifully over her belly. It was elegant, modest, and clearly expensive. Sandra had written a small note. "This is the dress for the ceremony. Please wear it with comfortable shoes. You're going to look wonderful." Lena held it up, watching the fabric catch the light. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine walking on stage in it, singing beautiful songs, leaving with her head high and her bank account full enough to breathe. Then reality tugged her back. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was a battlefield disguised as a ballroom. Her phone buzzed again. "Hi Lena, just confirming rehearsal this Thursday at 2 p.m. at the hotel. The bride and groom will be there. We'll run through the processional and one of your songs, Sandra." Lena's stomach tightened. She would have to stand in front of Adrian again, this time dressed nicely, belly clearly visible, voice filling the room. She almost texted back, "I can't make it." Instead, she wrote, "I'll be there, thank you." That evening, Camilla found her sitting on the couch, staring at the blue dress hanging from the closet door. "Rehearsal," Camilla guessed. Lena nodded. "I have to see him again. And pretend everything is normal." "You can do this," Kangia said firmly. "And if you feel like you can't, then pretend you can, until the real strength catches up." They spent the next hour practicing. Camilla stood in the middle of the living room, arms folded, playing the role of Adrian. Lena walked in and said, "Good afternoon, Mr. Cole." The first time, her voice shook. "Again," Camilla said. "Say it like he's a client, not a ghost from your past." They repeated it until Lena could say his name without flinching. They practiced the moment he tried to belittle her. They practiced her smiling politely and replying professionally. By the time Thursday came, Lena had built armor around her heart. Not to hide her feelings forever. Just to get her through the day. November 15th arrived cold and clear. Lena woke up early, her stomach swirling with nerves. The baby moved restlessly inside her. "It's okay, little one," she whispered. "Today is just another performance. Mama's going to be brave for both of us." She took a long shower, washed her hair, and styled it in soft waves around her shoulders. She applied light makeup enough to look polished on camera, but not heavy. Then she slipped into the midnight blue dress. When she looked in the mirror, she hardly recognized herself. She looked like a woman who belonged in a place like the Imperial Crown Hotel. Extron beautiful. You are not going there as his victim, she told her reflection. You're going there as yourself. At 3 o'clock, a car provided by the wedding planner picked her up. She arrived at a side entrance, where staff ushered her into a preparation room. A string quartet tuned their instruments in the corner. There was a table with bottled water and small snacks. You must be the vocalist, said an older man with a violin. I'm Thomas. We've heard you're very good. Nice to meet you, Lena replied, placing her 2 folders on the table. One folder contained the safe songs. The other contained the dangerous one. At 4:30, Sandra rushed in, clipboard in hand, earpiece in her ear. 1 hour until the ceremony, she announced. Guests are arriving. Lena, you'll sing Ave Maria as the bride walks down the aisle. Then during the signing of the marriage certificate, you'll perform at last. After that, 3 songs during the cocktail hour. Ready? As ready as I'll ever be, Lena answered. Don't be nervous, Sandra said with a smile. Just sing from your heart. If only it were that simple. At 5 o'clock, Lena stood behind a side door to the ballroom, peeking out. The transformation since rehearsal was breathtaking. The room was filled with 300 people in formal clothes. Candles flickered on every surface. White flowers climbed over arches and arrangements. And at the front, in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than her entire year's rent, stood Adrian. He looked relaxed, confident, like a man who had never made a mistake in his life. Like a man who deserved all of this. Lena felt her anger rise, not wild and fiery, but cold and clear. 5 minutes later, Sandra whispered, "Places." Lena walked onto the small platform to the side of the altar and sat on a stool by the microphone. The string quartet took their positions. Whispers floated through the room. Is the singer pregnant? That's unusual for a luxury wedding. Look at her dress. She's glowing. The main doors opened. Everyone rose to their feet. And there, framed by the doorway, stood Victoria Holley in a gown that looked like it had been woven out of moonlight and diamonds. She was stunning, but her smile still looked uncertain. Her hand trembled slightly on her father's arm. The music cue came, and Lena began to sing Ave Maria. Her voice filled the ballroom, rich and clear. The Latin words rolled off her tongue with haunting beauty. People in the audience closed their eyes. Some dabbed at tears. Lena watched Victoria walk slowly down the aisle. She glanced at Adrian. He was watching his bride. But his expression wasn't soft, or tender, or overwhelmed. It was satisfied. Like a man looking at a contract he had successfully negotiated. By the time Victoria reached the altar, Lena knew something with absolute clarity. This was not a love story. The minister began to speak. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of... Lena barely heard the words. Her heart pounded. Her hands rested on the 2 folders in her lap. In one, the safe songs. In the other, the truth. They exchanged vows, elegant words that sounded beautiful, but felt strangely empty to Lena's ears. And now, the minister said, the bride and groom will sign the marriage certificate. Sandra gave Lena her cue. This was the moment she was supposed to sing at last. Lena stood up. The baby pressed against her ribs, as if reminding her that she was not alone. 300 guests turned to look at her. Phones were ready. cameras pointed toward the stage. Her fingers opened the folder. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Then, instead of taking out At Last, she pulled out the sheets for You Walked Away, but Love Remained. She walked over to the piano, where Thomas, the accompanist, sat waiting. "This isn't the song we rehearsed," he whispered, eyes widening. "I know," Lena said softly, placing the music in front of him. "But I think it's the one I'm supposed to sing." He looked at the title, then at her face. He saw the determination there. The pain, the courage. "What's the key?" he asked quietly. "C major," she replied. Simple progression, a lead. "Just follow me." He nodded slowly. "I've got you." Adrian glanced up from the marriage certificate, annoyed by the delay. "Is there a problem?" he called. Lena stepped up to the microphone. "No problem, Mr. Cole," she said calmly, her voice echoing in the silent ballroom. "I'd just like to perform a different song for you today. Something special." Sandro was standing at the side of the room, shaking her head frantically, mouthing, "No, no, no." Adrian frowned, but didn't want to cause a scene. "Fine," he said with a dismissive wave. "Just sing something." He had no idea what he had just allowed. Lena closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she opened them, looked directly at him, and began to sing. Thomas played the opening chords, soft, steady. Lena's voice rose. Clear, honest, unavoidable. "You walked away and left me in the thunder. Said our little world would pull your bright life under. You closed the door and never turned around. But love stayed here, on broken ground." Conversations stopped. Whispers broke out. People turned fully in their seats. Adrian's pen froze over the paper. He knew that voice. He knew that pain. Lena continued, her voice gaining strength. "You wanted rooms with walls of glass and gold? A last name shining louder than your soul. You traded hands that held you when you cried, for crowds that clap, and hearts that hide." Victoria slowly lifted her head to stare at Lena. Her gaze dropped to Lena's belly, then to Adrian, then back to Lena. Her expression shifted from confusion to suspicion to dawning horror. The chorus hit, and Lena's eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of release. "You walked away, but love remained." In tiny kicks and whispered names. "You broke my heart, but I'm not ashamed, because you left. And love remained." The words hung in the air. You left, love remained. Tiny kicks. Every woman in that room understood. Some clutched their chests. Some covered their mouths. Some looked at Adrian with disgust. Lena sang the second verse. "You said I'd never fit inside your sky. Too small, too simple for your hungry eyes. You threw a future in a stranger's face, and told yourself it wasn't your disgrace." Adrian's face turned pale, then red, then a strange, sickly shade in between. "Stop!" he shouted suddenly, his voice cracking in the middle of the word. "Turn off her mic! Now!" But Thomas kept playing. The sound engineer hesitated. The guests didn't. Soft murmurs rose. "Let her sing. Don't you dare stop her. Is it true? Is that his baby?" Lena did not stop. She was beyond stopping. The dam inside her had broken, and the truth was pouring out. You walked away, but love held on. In every sleepless night before the dawn, I stand here strong, though you left me blamed. Because you left, and love remained. Phones lit up. Multiple guests had started recording. Some streamed live to social media. Some whispered captions under their breath. Bride learns the truth at the altar. Pregnant singer exposes groom. In the front row, Victoria's mother pressed a hand to her chest. Is this some kind of joke? Someone muttered. No one was laughing. Lena reached the bridge. Her voice soared higher than it had ever gone in any restaurant or small stage. I'm not singing for your pity. I'm not begging for your name. I'm singing so the world can see. Love is stronger than your shame. Asterisk. Some people in the audience stood up. Others cried openly. Lena's last chorus came like a wave. She looked at Adrian. At Victoria. At the crowd. You walked away, but love stayed near. In two small hearts, you'll never hold or hear. You lost more than the girl you blamed. Because you left, and love remained. Asterisk. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly. Two small hearts. The final note rang through the crystal chandeliers, and then silence. Complete, absolute silence. Lena stood there, chest heaving, tears on her face, one hand on her stomach, the other still holding the microphone. She had done it. No more hiding. No more pretending. If consequences were coming, she would face them. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then a single pair of hands began to clap. Then another. Then another. Within moments, half the room was standing, applauding her. Not polite wedding applause. Real applause. Angry, emotional, defiant, brave. Someone shouted, "Tell your truth." Another woman cried. Adrian finally found his voice. He stormed forward, his face twisted with rage. You, he choked out, pointing at Lena with a shaking hand. You vindictive you've ruined everything. This is my wedding, my day. How dare you? But his voice was drowned out by the clapping, the whispers, the soft, shocked sobs. Victoria turned to him. Her face was as white as the flowers around them. That baby, she said slowly, voice shaking. The one she's carrying? Is it yours? The room went silent again. All eyes turned to Adrian. He opened his mouth, closed it. His jaw worked, but no sound came out. He didn't need to answer. The guilt on his face screamed the truth. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You told me you'd never been in love before, she said, voice rising. You said I was your first real relationship. You looked me in the eye and swore that. Was that a lie too? She was nothing, Adrian snapped, panic clawing at his composure. A girlfriend from before I built my company. She doesn't belong in this world. She's just... He stopped, realizing people were recording this too, but it was too late. The words were already out. She's just nothing, he had said. Lena felt something strange inside her. A break and a healing at the same time. He had told the world exactly how he saw her. And in doing so, he had exposed himself more than any lyric ever could. Victoria stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Not the polished CEO. Not the charming fiancé. But the man beneath the $1,000 suit. You got another woman pregnant? She said slowly, almost tasting each word. You abandoned her? Okay. Then you hired her to sing at our wedding so you could show everyone how above her you are. Adrian began. No, Victoria cut in sharply. Don't bother. She looked down at the unsigned marriage certificate. The expensive pen lay beside it, waiting. She picked it up. For a moment, it looked like she might sign. Instead, she let the pen fall. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed. "This wedding is over," she said clearly. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, voices overlapping. "You can't do this," Adrian snarled, grabbing for her hand. "Do you know what you're throwing away? Our families? Our plans? Everything Everything you wanted," Victoria said coldly, pulling away so sharply that his fingers slipped from her wrist. "I will not spend the rest of my life as a trophy standing next to a man who can't tell the difference between love and leverage." She turned to Lena. For a second, the two women simply looked at each other, one in a designer gown, one in a simple blue dress, both with tear-streaked faces. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly, voice raw but sincere. "You didn't ruin my life today. You saved it." She gathered the heavy skirt of her expensive dress in both hands and walked down the aisle. Away from the altar, away from Adrian, away from the shattered ceremony. Her mother chased after her, whispering frantically about shame, reputation, headlines. But Victoria didn't look back. The ballroom dissolved into chaos. Some guests rushed toward the exits. Some clustered in little groups, whispering furiously. Some marched straight up to Adrian, faces tight with anger. Phones were everywhere. Security guards appeared at the doors, not quite sure whom they were supposed to protect. Through it all, Lena stood on the stage, feeling strangely still. The adrenaline that had carried her through the song was fading. Now there was just exhaustion and a deep, unusual calm. Adrian began storming toward her, pushing past people. "You," he hissed, "you will never work in this city again. I will make sure of it. You'll regret." An older woman in an elegant gown stepped forward. "You humiliated yourself," she said calmly. That young woman sang the truth. You tried to scream it down. That's what we all saw. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "The baby is yours, isn't it?" Marcus asked quietly. Adrian's silence was louder than any admission. Marcus shook his head. "I thought I knew you, man," he said. "But I don't know this version of you. The one who abandons a pregnant woman and then turns her into a prop at his own wedding." "Everyone, please," came another voice, deeper, authoritative. A man in his 60s stepped onto the stage. He wore a dark suit with a small company pin on the lapel and carried himself with the ease of someone used to being listened to. "I'm Robert Graham," he said. "For those who don't know me, I sit on the board of Heartline Systems." Adrian stiffened. "The man I came here to see get married today," Mr. Graham continued, "is the CEO of our company. I thought I understood his character. After what I've just witnessed, I'm not so sure." He turned to Lena. "That," he said, nodding toward where she had stood to sing, "was the bravest thing I've seen in a very long time." Then he looked at the guests. "We like to talk about success," he went on. "Profits, growth, market share. But character is just as important. Maybe more. And today, Ms. Morris showed more character in 5 minutes than some of us show in years." Adrian flushed. "You can't bring the company into this," he snapped. "This is my personal life." "It stopped being your personal life when you turned it into a public spectacle and dragged a pregnant woman into this room to be humiliated," Mr. Graham replied. "As of this moment, I'm calling for an emergency board meeting to discuss your position as CEO." Gasps rose again. Adrian paled. "You can't do that to me," he stammered. "I built that company." "And you may have just dragged it through the mud," Mr. Graham said coldly. "Clients see this. Partners see this. Partners see this. The world sees this. We cannot pretend character doesn't matter when everyone is watching." He turned back to Lena. Ms. Morris, he said gently. I understand you were promised payment for your performance today. I will personally see that you receive it. Along with a bonus, he took out a card and handed it to her. If you're willing, he added, I know several venues and events that would be honored to have a singer of your talent and integrity. Call my office. Lena took the card with trembling fingers. Thank you, she whispered. No, Mr. Graham said. Thank you. For reminding all of us that truth still has a voice. Sandra made her way to the stage, looking both frazzled and guilty. Lena, she said softly. I had no idea. I swear, if I'd known your history with Mr. Cole. It's not your fault, Lena replied quietly. You were just doing your job. For whatever it's worth, Sandra said, eyes shiny, your song. It was the most powerful thing I've ever heard at a wedding. Or anywhere. Lena managed a weak smile. I should probably go, she said. I think I've caused enough headlines for one night. I'll take you out the back way, Sandra said. You don't need to deal with reporters on top of everything else. On her way out, several guests stopped her. You were incredible. Thank you for speaking for all of us who never could. Where can we hear more of your music? A young woman, maybe 22, grabbed Lena's hand. My ex left when I got pregnant, the woman said, tears streaming down her face. He said I'd ruined his life. Hearing you tonight, I don't feel so alone anymore. Thank you. Lena squeezed her hand. You're not ruined, she said softly. You're rebuilding. That's different. Outside, a black sedan waited. Sandra pressed an envelope into Lena's hands. 3,000, she said. As promised. And Mr. Graham told me to add this. She slipped in a smaller envelope. 2,000 more, she said. An apology from the universe, maybe? $5,000. Lena stared at the envelope, hardly trusting that it was real. With this money, she murmured to her baby later that night, we can breathe for a little while. The car pulled away from the shining hotel. The noise of the ruined wedding faded behind them. And for the first time since the night Adrian left, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Free. What Lena didn't know yet was that the wedding wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. By the time she reached her apartment building, the video of her performance had already been posted online. Within 2 hours, it had over 1 million views. By the time she opened her door, Camila was standing there waiting, holding her phone with an expression somewhere between shock, pride, and disbelief. Oh my God, Camila blurted before Lena could even speak. Are you okay? The internet is on fire. What do you mean? Lena asked, still numb. Camila held up her phone. On the screen, Lena saw herself in the blue dress, one hand on her belly, singing into the microphone. The title read, Bride walks out after pregnant singer exposes groom's betrayal at luxury wedding. Lena watched the video in silence. She watched her own face fill the screen, watched Adrian's expression crumble, watched Victoria walk away. Below the video, comments flew up faster than she could read them. This woman is a queen. I'm crying in my kitchen right now. He deserved every word. Where can they listen to this song on repeat? To all single mums watching this, we see you. Millions of people have seen it already, Cangela said. It's on every platform. People are calling you the wedding truth singer. Lena's phone buzzed on the table. And buzzed? And buzzed? And buzzed? Calls, texts, emails, notifications. Turn it off, Lena said, suddenly overwhelmed. Please, just turn it off for a minute. Camila switched it to airplane mode and pulled her into a hug. Breathe, she whispered. You did something incredibly brave. The world just noticed, that's all. Over the next few days, the story spread further. Talk shows debated it. News sites wrote headlines. People made reaction videos, cover versions of her song, and long comment threads sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival. But this time, Lena refused to let the world define her as the girl whose wedding song went viral. She was more than that. She was a mother to be, an artist. And now, unexpectedly, a voice for people who had been told they were not enough. One morning, a call came in from an unknown number. Something told Lena to answer. "Hello? Hello? Is this Ms. Morris?" asked a warm, professional voice. "My name is Melissa Carter. I'm a music producer and artist manager. I've been following your story, and I'd love to talk about your future." "My future?" Lena echoed, stunned. "Yes," Melissa replied, smiling through the phone. "Your voice is incredible. But it's not just that. Your story, your authenticity, people feel it. That's rare in this industry. Have you ever thought about recording your own music on a larger scale?" Lena looked around at her tiny living room. At the small keyboard? At the pile of bills? At the now much lighter envelope on the table? "I'm 7 months pregnant," she said slowly. "I live in a small apartment, and my fanciest microphone is from a bargain store." Melissa laughed softly. "That's exactly why people love you," she said. "They're tired of fake perfection. They want real. They want someone who's been through something and came out stronger. I'm not asking you to become a star overnight. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to meet and talk." Lena hesitated, then thought about her daughters kicking inside her. About giving them a life built on courage, not fear. "Okay," she said. "Let's talk." Meanwhile, in a glass office that no longer felt secure, Adrian sat in front of a conference table surrounded by board members. The emergency meeting had been called. The video of the wedding had been played on a screen. The comments from clients had been read out loud. The drop in stock price had been shown in neat, cruel graphs. "Your personal life is your personal life," said one board member. "But when it becomes a public scandal that damages the company's reputation, it becomes our problem. We have major partners reconsidering their contracts," added another. "They don't want their names tied to a man trending worldwide for abandoning a pregnant woman and trying to humiliate her." Adrian clenched his jaw, gripping the arms of his leather chair. "I built this company," he said, his voice icy. "One mistake shouldn't erase all of that." "That one mistake lasted months," Mr. Graham replied. "And it's not just about what you did. It's about how you responded. No remorse. No accountability. Just anger that someone dared to tell the truth." In the end, they gave him 2 choices: resign quietly with a severance package, or be publicly fired. The man who used to believe image was everything now sat in an office full of packed boxes. His assistant knocked, then opened the door. "Mr. Cole, Marcus is here to see you." "I don't want visitors," Adrian snapped. Marcus walked in anyway. He looked tired. Older. "I just watched Lena's interview," Marcus said, sitting down. "Millions of people did. She didn't insult you. She didn't drag your name. She just told the truth." "So," Adrian muttered. "So I came to ask if you feel anything," Marcus said. "Regret? Guilt? Anything at all?" "I regret hiring her for the wedding," Adrian said bitterly. "That was a mistake." Marcus stared at him. "That's it?" he asked quietly. "You don't regret abandoning a woman you said you loved? You don't regret throwing money on a table and walking away from your child?" Adrian slammed a box shut. What do you want me to say? He shouted. That I'm a monster? Fine, I'm awful. Does that make you feel better?
Oh,
Marcus said calmly. Because real regret doesn't sound like that. Real regret tries to fix things. Have you called her? Have you offered to support your child? Or are you just angry the world finally saw who you are? Adrian looked away. For a brief moment, something like shame flickered in his eyes. But he pushed it down like he had pushed down every uncomfortable feeling for years. Get out, he said quietly. Marcus stood, shook his head, and walked to the door. I hope one day you understand that you didn't just lose a wedding, he said. You lost your soul. And you're the only one who can get it back. The door closed. Adrian was alone. 2 months later, in a cozy professional studio with soft lights and a big window, Lena stood in front of a microphone unlike any she had used before. Headphones on. Lyrics in front of her. Melissa smiled at her from behind the glass in the control room. Whenever you're ready, the producer said into the intercom. Lena took a breath. Her belly was enormous now, ready to bring her babies into the world. She closed her eyes and began to sing. You walked away, but love remained. This time, she wasn't just singing for herself. She was singing for every single mother who had cried over a kitchen sink. For every person who had been told they were too small for someone's big dreams. For every soul who needed to hear they were not the problem. When the last note faded, Melissa's voice crackled through the speakers. That, she said, was perfect. The song was released a week later. All proceeds will be donated, the description read, to charities supporting single parents and children in need. Within 24 hours, the track hit 1 million streams. Within a week, it climbed charts in multiple countries. People used it in videos, in montages of their own stories, in quiet moments where they needed to remember that love could still stay, even when someone else walked away. Comments filled Lena's inbox. I left an abusive relationship after hearing this. I'm a single dad raising my daughter. This song makes me feel less alone. My mum played this every morning while she got us ready for school. She said it gave her strength. Thank you, Lena's life changed. But she never forgot the night in that ballroom. Because that was the night she drew a line. Not between her and Adrian. Between who she used to be and who she was becoming. January came, cold and bright. One night, at 2 a.m, Lena woke up with a sharp pain in her abdomen. Camilla, she gasped into her phone a few minutes later, I think it's time. 12 intense hours later, in a hospital room filled with beeping machines and soft encouragement, a doctor smiled. Surprise, he said. You've been carrying 2 little miracles. Twins? 2 baby girls. Lena laughed and cried at the same time. She held each tiny girl in her arms, one at a time, feeling their small fingers wrap around hers. What are their names? Andres asked. Lena had been thinking about names for months. She looked down at them, at these 2 little beings who had arrived after chaos and pain and music and truth. This one, she said, kissing the forehead of the first baby, is Hope. And this one, she said, touching the other baby's tiny hand, is Grace. Because Hope had kept her moving when everything felt impossible, and Grace had taught her to forgive herself, her past, and even, eventually, the man who had walked away. Not for his sake. For hers. Camilla stood beside her, tears streaming down her face. They're perfect, she whispered. Just like their mum. Weeks later, as Lena rocked Hope in one arm and Grace in the other, she scrolled through messages from strangers. Messages of gratitude. Of courage. Of people choosing themselves after years of choosing people who never chose them back. Her song played softly in the background. You walked away, but love remained. Camilla sat on the edge of the couch, reading a comment out loud. This one, she said, is from someone in South Africa. She says your story helped her leave a man who told her she was nothing without him. Lena smiled tiredly. I was never nothing, she murmured, more to her daughters than to herself. And neither are they. She pulled the girls closer. Listen, Hope. Listen, Grace. One day you'll grow up and meet people who tell you who you are and what you're worth. Some will try to shrink you so they can feel bigger. When that happens, I want you to remember this. She kissed their tiny heads. You are more than what anyone walks away from, she whispered. You are more than someone else's fear. You are loved. You are worthy. And you never, ever have to sing on a stage built from someone else's shame. The babies slept on, unaware. But somewhere, across the world, people replayed her song, shared her story, and typed out comments like, if someone can survive this and still sing with that much love, maybe I can survive my story too. Maybe that's why you're here right now, listening. Maybe you've been abandoned. Maybe someone told you that you were not good enough for their world. Maybe they walked away when things got hard. If that's you, hear this. Their choice does not define your worth. You are not the hole they left behind. You are the person still standing. And like Lena, you can turn the worst thing that ever happened to you into the beginning of something new. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful life stories. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what part of this story spoke to your heart the most. Until next time, remember, some people walk away, but love the real kind remains.